Hey guys, I just want to let you know I absolutely love using Anchor. I have over 100 episodes with Anchor. And the great thing about it is I get to help a lot of different people. I've had over 1,000 listeners, and I've actually had people reach out to me telling me that it actually saved their life. So if you have anything that you want to talk about, if you have a passion, if you have a goal, definitely start podcasting using Anchor. It's probably the best thing I've done in my podcasting career. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Success Your Why Powers Your How. I am your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. I want to thank our sponsors for today. They are two female veterans. As you know, my sponsors are 100% veterans, 100% of the time. The first one is Annette Wittenberger. She has a podcast called The Truths We Hide Behind. Definitely check her podcast out. It can get really deep, especially if we're talking about MST or sexual trauma or anything like that. And also, my other friend, she has a podcast called The Hoarding Solution. Her name is Tammy Moses. If you know anybody that's dealing with any hoarding issues, please reach out and touch base with her. Check out their podcast. They love your support. Thank you so much. Hey, guys, today I got a special treat for you guys. I have a fitness icon coming on. She is amazing. She did 10 years in the Air Force, so she's a veteran, and she's done some great things in the uniform, even better things out of the uniform. She's a best-selling author. I don't know what else I could say about this woman, but Miss Meghann, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, it's fun. I'm so grateful that we finally got to talk. And life gets crazy sometimes, but we adapt and we overcome, like we're taught in the military, right?
Right, absolutely.
So, how's your day going? How's everything?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's a little cloudy and overcast here in Ogden, but that's okay. It's still beautiful.
So, you're in Utah?
Yes, I'm in Utah right now, helping my aunt out with her real estate company, looking for some really awesome paths for me that never thought. It's funny how in life, like just the little things that happen from day to day, you don't really see at all. Like if you would have asked me even just a couple of months ago where I'd be at, you don't see things that happen or see where your path goes. And that's kind of what has happened recently with my aunt. Was moved to Wyoming back in November and just felt really stuck there due to some unforeseen circumstances with a relationship and life in general. And she's a couple hours away. And so she had me come here. And that's what led me to her real estate company. And now she's wanting me to join her team, which is awesome. Didn't ever think about real estate, but being an NLP coach, she wants me to also coach, like a high performance sales coach slash mindset coach also, which kind of tied into her brokerage that she owns and wants me to help build her team. So I'm really excited to be working with her as well. It's another avenue for me this year.
That's awesome. And I'm just going to throw this out there that Utah is one of the biggest states that for companies that make supplements. So,
Really?
yes,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I was in the
Awesome.
supplement. I was in the supplement industry for over 30 years, health and fitness
Wow.
with the guys from WWE, NFL, Major League Baseball, and
Yeah.
80% of the supplements come from Utah. So I'm just throwing it out.
Wow. That's very cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So tell us where were you born? What state you're born in?
Yeah, so a little about me. I actually was born in Minnesota, which is hilarious because I've never been there. I mean, I was born there, but my my dad was going to St. Cloud University at the time. So I was born in Little Falls, Minnesota, which is close to St. Cloud. And at the time, right after I was born, he decided to join the army. So my mom's from Colorado, my dad's from Ohio, and that's where they met was Colorado, and had moved up there and had me, and then we moved right back to Colorado. So really that's where I say I'm from because that's my home. That's where I grew up, mostly in Littleton, Lakewood, so like southwest part of Denver. And being from Colorado, it's hard not to be super biased because Colorado is an amazing place. It's very beautiful, very outdoorsy. I mean, there's the city life if you like to party and club and do all those things, right? And then there's the outdoor life, the hunting and camping and physical activity. I mean, I love, snowboarding. I grew up camping, hiking, all the cool stuff.
So
So
what kind of little girl was Megan?
I was actually a super, like, I was not girly, which is funny. I was a huge tomboy. Like, I would, most of my friends were guys. I would go out and play football with the guys. I was really strong and as tough as they were. So I would go play with them and like play sports with them and stuff. And it was hard growing up because I definitely at a very young age felt very insecure about myself. It kind of led to me having a very troubled teenage life in high school and then into my adulthood even because I always saw myself as like not like most of the girls that are, those girls that are when things are like beautiful and perfect and, petite and whatever, right? Like I never saw myself that way. And I had a lot of, unfortunately, because my very first assault happened when I was in high school and it completely, I was already, being a teenage girl is already hard enough as it is. And having that happen just completely kind of warped my thinking and my viewpoint in life, my perspective, and it just created a lot more self-esteem issues. I started drinking at a young age and just, I mean, I had no desire to be in high school. I knew that I didn't want to go to college. So for a long time, I was really lost. I kind of got into early adulthood and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was really good at everything. I mean, I would go sell cars and I would kill it. And then I'd get bored and I've sold motorcycles. I've worked as a cosmetics manager. I've been all over the place. So yeah, I just kind of, went. I was very like impulsive and like, you know what, this sounds fun. I'm gonna go try this.
Now,
And
lately I've been talking to a lot of people that have, had a lot of traumas like yourself. Now, I was just talking to a gentleman that had the same trauma, but it happened to him when he was 6 years old, and it was
oh
by
my gosh,
opposite sex. It was by a female. And
really?
yeah,
Wow.
so, but we were talking because, sometimes people that come on my show, we get real deep sometimes because this is
Oh
the
yeah.
stuff that nobody talks about. This is stuff that needs to be heard.
Yes,
So now,
absolutely.
a lot of times if a female or male gets abused, if they were very outgoing before they got abused, they became more introverted. Or if
Mm.
they were more introverted before, their attitude changed to be more outgoing. Did you stay the same? Were you even keeled after that?
Um, I would say I've always been an outgoing person, but I was very like deep down. I think that's why, because I always felt like I was so different from people. I hid so much stuff. Like deep down, I truly hated myself. I literally thought I was like this ugly, I literally thought I was fat for years. And even looking back on my pictures, and it's crazy, it's like I was not a fat kid. I was never like overweight or extremely obese. And it broke my heart to think that I thought those things about myself and I did not value myself. I had no self-worth. And that definitely, comes from being a kid, but then it got exacerbated because of my assault, right? Like it completely just changed everything about me where I truly um had no respect for me and I acted out in ways like my drinking and then started being promiscuous and having sex and at a very young age. I mean, I was in I guess young for me, but high school, and I just didn't care. I didn't care what my reputation was. I didn't care. And I'm not saying like I was going around sleeping with the whole world, but I just had no respect for myself because I didn't have resources. I didn't have a mentor even. I think if I had had somebody in my life that I could really feel trusted with and feel like that person was there for me and I could open up to them, I think I would have had a lot different outlook. But I know, at the time, like now I know looking back and I just did the best with the resources I had at the time. And I was in survival mode. And that's for a lot of assault victims. A lot of people who've endured emotional trauma and significant events when they're young, especially, that's what happens. You go into survival mode and you do the best that you can to get through that. And what's that? Sorry.
Nope. I was just going to say, I've interviewed hundreds of people on the show now, and I'm not a professional, but I found that most people that act out as adults is either stuff that happened between the ages of 3 and 13. And then
Hmm.
you join the military, you add war, and then you add alcohol to the mix.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it becomes the perfect storm. And
Right.
there is no book to tell you how to get out of the perfect storm.
No, not at all. Not even close. And in fact, really, if you think about it, this is the reason why I'm so passionate about what I do now. The military pretty much completely destroys anything you do if you even try to seek help. And it's like, okay, we have tutors for school. We have, fitness coaches or personal trainers if you want to get in shape, right? You have all these tools. Yet the one thing that people need, like the most important thing that we should be offering, especially veterans and military members, is mental health. And they're like, "Oh, you're going to be fine. Like you won't get retaliated against. You won't, there won't be any repercussions." That's a complete absolute lie. Because the minute you step forward and tell somebody that you are not doing well, it's like that's their mission to completely destroy you, destroy your career, destroy your reputation. That's what happened to me. And,
Yeah, so
so I had, sorry, what's that?
we're gonna get to that, but I got to know first of all, because I love hearing everybody's recruiting story, because everybody has their own recruiting. Nobody's is ever the same. So what?
Oh, for the military?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your recruiting story like?
So yeah, picking up where I left off, basically like early 20s, I still, like I said, I mean, I made money. I had, I was always responsible and I just didn't know what I wanted to do in life. And so right around 25, like 24 and a half, I just woke up one day and was like, what in the hell am I doing with my life? And I was miserable and I had no purpose and I had nothing. Of course, I had already, had a lot of drinking problems before I joined the military. And I decided to become a firefighter. And so I did everything that I could. My aunt was the highest board certified in the state of Illinois. She's a flight paramedic. And I went out there and took my EMT course from her and I took a bunch of my firefighting courses. And then that led me on the path to become a firefighter. I came back to Colorado in 2006 and started, testing for fire departments. I got on with Franktown Fire in 2007. Amazing department, got a lot of hands-on experience and all of that stuff. And then about a year and a half later, I decided my ex-boyfriend was a pilot in the Air Force and he had gone to the Air Force Academy. So we dated pretty much most of his Air Force Academy career, right? Like for a couple of years. And I thought we were going to get married. I mean, he like took off and just kind of left and I was devastated. Like, hello, what happened? And, and, I kind of moved on and went, like I said, became a firefighter. And then 2008, he pops up out of nowhere and starts talking to me again. And he convinced me to go join the Air Force. And I went to the recruiter and was like, listen, I'm 26 years old. Actually, I was 27 at the time, I just turned 27. At the time, active duty for Air Force was cut off at 28. So I'm like, listen, I don't have time for this crap. Like, do not BS me. I want to join the Air Force, but I only want to be a firefighter. And my recruiter was like, and I was just like, just give it to me straight, right? Like, don't lie to me, don't screw me over, because you hear the horror stories about how people get roped in and they end up in a completely horrible career field or, whatever, right? And so he was straight up. He was like, all right, I cannot promise you that I'm going to get you this job, but I will do the best that I can. And they didn't have any firefighter slots or medic slots at the time. And I was a depper. So I enlisted technically, but was delayed entry program. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And he talked to me about I was actually going to come in as a SEER instructor, which is freaking awesome because it was at the time, it was like one of the, I think maybe 2 or 3 jobs in the entire Air Force that females could do that was considered combat, or like special forces. And he gave me, and I'm like, what is SEER? And I'm like, what is that? And so he told me about it. And I'm like, that sounds pretty sweet. And so I went and took the test. I did my pass test. I totally destroyed the test, like killed it, right? Did my swim, did my run, just crushed it. And I was waiting to ship out for that because you had to have enough people to get a class together because special forces. And they did not have, I was still waiting for them to get enough people together. And I guess the class date wasn't until May and my birthday was June. So I would have turned 28. And he was like, we cannot send you. They're not going to give you an age waiver. And I was like, what? I was so mad because I'm like, dude, I'm just waiting to go. What if you send me to basic training now? You're telling me I can't just like I'd already be in. I'd just be waiting to go to tech school. And they was like, no, they're not going to approve it. So I was pretty crushed, right? And there was nothing still open. And this is hilarious. This is like unheard of. So I ended up shipping. They're like, you got to go. You got 6 months until your birthday. They want you to ship now. And I shipped open mechanical because that was the only thing they had available. My dad was so mad at me. He was like, "What are you doing? This is going to be the worst thing ever." Because, of course, I don't want to be anything mechanical. And I'm like, "Dad, it'll work out. I promise. Like, just I'll figure it out." Right. So I get to basic training. I get to Lackland Air Force Base. And I go in like my second week for my job interview. And I look at this guy dead in the face. And I'm like, "Listen, you need to give me firefighter." Like, I straight up will do whatever I can to get out of the Air Force if you do not give me this job. I'm 27 and a half years old. I don't have time for this bull crap. Like. And he's like, well, why should we give you the job? And I'm like, cause look at my certs. Like I know my recruiter had told me he was going to put, my firefighter certs from my civilian stuff in my file. And he was like, well, everybody wants firefighter and it's hard to get. I'm like, I don't care. I'll straight up tell them I'm a lesbian if I have to. Cause the time, don't ask, don't tell was still in effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I will literally say and do anything to get out. I am not going to come here and pick a job I don't want. And so he goes and leaves for a minute, comes back, and he's like, oh, they didn't have the job. And I'm like, freaking out, right? I'm like about to cry. I was like, this is not happening. And I'm in a complete panic mode, sitting there at this desk. And I'm like, okay, what the hell did I just do? And this other guy comes in and he's like, you want the job? And I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, all right, you got the job. And I was like, what? So they were totally messing with me. But I managed to pull, and to give you a little perspective on this, firefighter is in general. Okay. I have the different categories like mechanical, general, electrical, right?
Yeah.
Firefighter is in a completely different category. And I came in as open mechanical and I got firefighter. And I guess another girl that was in my flight had the guy that came in, the boss of my interviewer. And she said that my guy had come in and handed my file to her guy and was like, you need to check this girl's file out. And he was like, why? And he was like, because she wants firefighter. And they were like, we're not going to give it to her. And the guy, my interviewer, was like, no, you need to look at her file. And I guess they opened it up and took a look at my certs. And they're like, all right, give her the job. And I was like, what? That's awesome. And my recruiter was completely blown away. He's like, I've never in my entire career ever heard of that even happening. He's like, I don't know how you did that. And I'm like, I told him straight up, you do not give me this job, I'm not staying here. Like, I will leave. I'm not going to waste my time. And they did. So yeah, it worked out for me.
You were the only female to go through that at the time?
Yep. Yeah.
So what was that like?
It was rough. I mean, I guess it was good for me because it was like a refresher, but there were times when, because I'd been a firefighter for a while and I loved it. And yeah, I mean, even as a civilian, they pick on you a little bit. You're a female, it's mostly males. I mean, there were some other females in my civilian department, but you come to give you an idea of how how it's run. It's not just Air Force, it's DoD Fire Academy. So it's literally every branch there. It's Marines, Air Force, some Navy, there's not as many, and then Army. And you're talking about probably 3,000 students at a time going through the Fire Academy. And when I got there, I think there was maybe 5 other females before me that were there, and they were all, they hadn't had a female in like over a month at least. And when I graduated with my class, I believe that most of the girls washed out at least once or twice, either to a class behind them, like 2 or 3 classes behind, or completely washed out of academy. I mean, it was a 95% washout rate when I came through. Wow. So yeah, it was tough. It was very, very physically demanding. It was mentally and emotionally demanding, and then you have school, like you have all your testing, and people kind of, mess with firefighters like, oh, just a bunch of, all brawn, no brains, right? Like just a bunch of dummies. And I'm like, no, you have to know your stuff. You have to know fire science it's a science. I mean, you have to know all kinds of stuff. You have to know, how much water you're putting on, how much pressure you're flowing out of the nozzle. There's so many calculations that come into play that you don't even think about when you are going into a fire or a building or a car or whatever, you're responding to. And you have to be very adaptable. You have to be able to think quickly on your feet and be able to respond in a manner that, shit can hit the fan any minute.
So
So
you totally crushed it, right? You
yes,
became firefighter of the year. Is that correct?
I did. So when I was, when I put in for when I graduated at the end of my basic training, you sit down and you can put your orders in of where you want to go. In the Air Force, we're a little bit more, friendly about that than other branches. They try to do their best. Obviously, everyone does not get their first pick, but they try to do their best that they can. So my first choice was Aviano Air Base, Italy, and I got my first choice. I got sent to Italy right out of tech school, and I was totally floored. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go live in a foreign country for 2 years. I am going to get to do my dream job. It's just going to be amazing. And so, yeah, I went overseas. I actually went with 5 of my buddies who I went through tech school with. We all got orders to Italy at the same time. So I already knew some of the guys. Um, we had a blast. I mean, I traveled everywhere, and it had a little bit of a rough start. I had a pretty unfortunate supervisor who literally hated me because I was a female. He thought that women belong in the kitchen making sandwiches like it's 1952. So, and he didn't hide it. I mean, and I took it. I just, because I'm like, he's a staff sergeant. I'm the lowest ranking and I'm the only female. And what am I gonna do? Right? Like, you just shut up and do whatever you're told. And I took it and I took it and I took it, and it got so bad that the rest of my department, I mean, everybody knew it about this guy. And I actually had the other shift came and took me from that shift and put me on their shift because it was so bad. And they knew that I was good at what I did. They knew I was a good firefighter. They knew that I was going to get the job done. Some of the guys, I'm sure they didn't like me for that. They didn't like the fact that I went out and kicked their ass on the fire ground. I mean, they were like, oh, you're a female, you're old, you're this. And I was like, yeah, well, why? Okay, why am I out here running circles around you guys? If you're 21, 22 years old and I'm so old and I'm a female, then you should be kicking my ass, right? Like, you know, it's because, I mean, that was how I shined, right? I went out, and then because I had passion for it, I absolutely loved what I did. And, I finally, at the end got recognition for that. And it's a peer nominated award. So I had just got orders to Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina, and I PCS.
That's where I retired from, out of Fort Jackson.
Oh, nice. So yeah, I PCS to Shaw from Aviano, which was a huge culture shock, but got there. And then October of 2011, I got notified by one of my buddies that was, one of our Italian firefighters. And he was like, oh, congratulations on your win at the, because they had the firefighters ball the night before. And I was like, and you firefighters, they clown on each other, they play jokes. It's all about, doing crazy stuff. And so I thought they were kidding. I'm like, yeah, okay, hilarious. And he was like, no, I'm serious. You really won. And I still didn't believe him. And I kept, talking crap to him because I was like, oh, yeah, hilarious, that you're going to tell me this. And then the fire chief's wife messaged me on Facebook, and she was like, congrats on winning military firefighter of the year. And I was like, what? Could not. I mean, I was blown away. I didn't even know they nominated me for it. And it's a peer nominated award. They put in my name, they put in my package with all the work that I'd done, all the volunteering. And I mean, I, got over 90s on my PT tests. I got over 90s on my CDCs, on my upgrade training when I became a driver operator of all the fire trucks. I did everything. I kicked ass at my job, and I still couldn't believe it, but it was definitely one of the high achievement moments in my career was getting that award, as the only female at the time, and literally the lowest ranking on the fire department.
Okay, so now you're on this highest of high. You're on this, you're kicking ass, you're taking names. You get to the 10-year mark, and then you decide to get out?
No, not at all. It's interesting looking back on things. I think I came to Shaw, and I was, I had, like, right after I got there, I was hitting close to I was a little over 3 years. So I'd signed up for just my 4-year contract the first time I enlisted. And of course, I start getting the notifications that I either have to re-enlist or get out. And I was really struggling. I was really feeling very torn. I absolutely, beyond a doubt, love what I do. And it's like, okay, my job isn't even really a job to me. It's who I am. Being a firefighter It's just a part of my personality. I found something that I was super passionate about and just excelled at. And then on the other hand, I hated some of the treatment that I got, and I hated dealing with the crap. I mean, even when I won that award, they sent it to Shaw for me to receive the award. And these guys, I was only there like a month, brand new. And these clowns that I worked with, some of them were like, oh, well, what'd you do to get that award? And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Are you serious? And these guys literally thought, me being a female, that I had gone and like performed a bunch of sexual favors to win this award, or done whatever to get that. And it was crushing, because it was like, okay, I get that there's some females like that in the military and it happens, but that's not me. And it never was me. And it was like, wow. And it just started to really kind of rub me in the wrong way. And I started just getting really, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, man, I really love this, but do I want to re-enlist another 4 years, or I want to stay in? And so I started looking at the Guard and the Reserve, because I had a lot of friends that had done both. And I started thinking, looking at my options, because I thought, well, I don't want to get completely out of the military, but I would like to go back to civilian firefighting and still stay in the military. And so I weighed my options out. I started doing my research. I met with a Guard recruiter out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and he was amazing. And they, at the time, didn't have any open firefighter slots at that wing. But he, knowing me after a while, had said, hey, I think you would be fabulous with the air medical evacuation crew. And I was like, what is that? And so I went up and met the commander at the time and talked to him about the job, and it was an air evac. So we flew on the C-130s. We medevac patients out. We got awesome deployments. We got awesome missions, because we were guards. We did a lot of stateside, like hurricane relief and all that stuff. And it just sounded so cool. And I thought, you know what? I didn't think I would ever leave firefighting, but yeah. And so I cross-trained into that and re-enlisted with the Guard for 6 years in Charlotte. And I stayed there, and it took a while for me to get going, because the Guard kind of gets put on the back burner when it comes up for classes, because active duty takes precedence. So I had to sit around for a year to wait to go back to tech school, which was frustrating for me, because I like to stay busy. So eventually I left. I went to Fort Sam Houston. I went to med tech training, and then I went on to do my seasoning days, my training, my clinicals, flight school, SEER school, water survival, all of that stuff. Eventually I transferred to Cheyenne, Wyoming, because I was moving home to Colorado. I missed my family, and I decided to transfer Guard units. And Colorado does not have a Guard air evac unit. Cheyenne's the closest one. So I moved home to Denver, transferred units to Cheyenne, and that was August of 2014. So shortly after that, I got a contracting job in the Marshall Islands, and as a firefighter, and I asked permission of my commander, because I was like, I hadn't gone to flight school yet, and I'm like, okay, this is the only time I can do this, because I can't leave being a flyer. You have to stay, flight certified and stay up on all your stuff, right? So I couldn't take that kind of time off ever again, and I really wanted to do a contract. And so she allowed me to go. Her husband happened to be a firefighter with Cheyenne Fire, so that kind of helped too. She was like, oh yeah, I get it. Love the job. Cool. So I took off. I left in January of 2015. I came back at the end of 2015 after working in the Marshall Islands for a year. And I went to Germany for a few months. And then next thing you know, I come back and they were like, hey, we need firefighters. We need firefighters for my Guard unit. They're like, we want to pull you back to fire, because we don't have enough firefighters to go. And I was like, what? I've been out of the career field for almost 4 years. Like I haven't been in the fire, like I've been in air evac. And they were like, we got hit with 3 taskings. So we got 3 different deployments just from the fire department. And firefighters deploying 6-man teams. And they're like, we need people. Your primary AFSC is fire. We need you. So I transferred over to fire. I could have said no, but I'm not that kind of person. I thought it's my duty. I don't want to let these people down. They need me, whatever. So I decided to go. I leave for Kuwait, July of 2016. Got to Ali Al Salim. Of course, insanely hot, awful. Wasn't my first deployment, but it was my first time to Kuwait. And I was like, okay, it's Kuwait. We got a pool, movie theater. It's going to be cake. I'm going to work out every day. It's going to be awesome, right? I'm going to come back, save up some money, being super, super fit, whatever. And that's kind of where things just went drastically wrong. Within the first month, I had torn my rotator cuff. I had broken my tailbone, so I cracked my coccyx, and I had a rotation on my anterior side of my hip was rotated to the front because of it, and mainly because these people wouldn't treat me for it. The physical therapist kept telling me I didn't have a torn rotator cuff. Now, I have been a personal trainer since 2011. I used to run PT when I was in Italy. I am a group fitness instructor, teach spin, boot camp, all that stuff, right? I mean, fitness was my life. I knew I had a torn rotator cuff, and this woman had a degree. She was an officer, didn't want to hear it from me. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't have a degree. You're not this, you're not that. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? I was furious. And so they just left me there. I knew it was torn. It was on a profile. And I met this guy who I was a staff sergeant at the time. He was a tech sergeant. He was also Air Force. He was a structures guy, so CE, but he was there with Red Horse. And their rotation was a little bit ahead of ours. It kind of overlapped because they're Red Horse, so they come at a different time. Long story short, I started dating this guy, and I never dated people on deployments. I always thought it was stupid. It just kind of happened. He was the one that really pursued the situation. Through social media, after about a month, I found out that he had lied to me about being married, and I confronted him, and it took me 3 different times to get him to finally admit it. He admitted he was full on married. He had he had kids with this woman. She was in basic training. I flipped out because I was like, dude, you just jeopardized my career. You're a piece of crap. Like, don't ever talk to me again. And then that's when my assault happened. So he physically and sexually assaulted me, and I was terrified. I didn't want to even come forward. This guy was very verbally and physically aggressive. And I knew that if I came forward when he was still in the deployed, in the AOR, that he would I was like, this guy's going to kill me. And so I had to wait until he left Kuwait to fly back to the States. And then I came forward, and OSI did the investigation. Luckily, my fire chief at the time, my commander, I had a wonderful, wonderful chain of command. Like, they 100% supported me. I was NCOIC of logistics and dispatch at the time, so I was like super stressed out, going to school, dealing with my injury, dealing with the assault. I was in therapy for it. And, it messed me up. I mean, it's like I stayed for the entire deployment dealing with all of that stuff. They never sent me home. And this happened in October 2016. I didn't come home until January 31st, 2017. And I had an assigned lawyer, a special victims counsel, who represented me, and got home. It was still ongoing. And then they did a command directed investigation on this guy. This guy already had a UIF. He had an unfavorable information file. So basically, he was in trouble before he even left his unit back here in the States. And he had an LOR, and they put him in the file and basically warned him, like, you're on, whatever, because he wasn't, in my opinion, they shouldn't let the freaking guy deploy. I mean, he was a scumbag. He is not a good NCO. He was not a good representation of the Air Force core values. You know the whole thing. So this guy deploys, he assaults me. After he left, I get stories from all kinds of other females on the base, like young airmen that were coming forward and telling me that this guy had tried to get him to get them to go to his room. I mean, he was just a predator, and he was just a sick person. So command directed investigation. His commander, who obviously already, they put the UIF in place, so he was well aware of this guy's behavior, decides that he is only going to charge this person with physical assault and adultery, and completely decided to ergo the 120, the Article 120, which is sexual assault. I was absolutely crushed. I was devastated. I was angry. I was pissed off. My lawyer couldn't believe it. So we got on a conference call with this commander, the first sergeant, the SARC, the JAG, and then me and my lawyer. And this lieutenant colonel is sitting here telling me on a freaking phone call how this does not align with the Air Force core values, and this person is not a representation of that. And I went off. And mind you, I'm a staff sergeant, and I'm talking to a lieutenant colonel, and I didn't give a shit anymore. I went off on this guy. I was like, how dare you? How dare you tell me that this doesn't align with your crap with the Air Force standards and core values, yet you're turning around and protecting him from being charged even. And he's a problem. It's not like this guy had a perfect record. And even if he did, it doesn't excuse it. You guys say you have a zero tolerance policy for sexual assault in the military, in the Air Force. And yet when it happens, this is what you do. You play it down and you act like it's just, oh, okay, let's just sweep it under the rug. And
so what do they do? What do they eventually do to the guy?
Nothing. I went off on this commander. The commander's like, oh, well, we demoted him for 6 months and he can't PCS and he can't deploy and he can't go TDY and he can't use his T. I said, sir, excuse my language. And with all due respect, I don't give a shit about any of that, because none of that makes up for what this person did to me. And how would you feel if that was your daughter, your cousin, your niece, your wife, your another airman in your own squadron that he did this to? Because guess what? He's going to do it again. I mean, you're condoning that behavior. And it was crickets. I mean, I'm sitting there going off on this phone call and I get done and nobody is saying a word. It's just complete silence. And then my lawyer's like, all right, well, thanks for the call. We're going to go. And he was disgusted as well. He was like, I can't believe this. I cannot believe, and I've come forward. I've contacted Congress on this. I've contacted representatives. I've contacted, what's her name? Senator, the female was Air Force and she was assaulted in the Air Force. She was an officer. She's in the Senate.
Okay. Yeah. I know you're talking.
I can't think of her name. I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, I contacted her like last year and told her the story. And she was like, how in the world did this even get to be a command directed investigation instead of a court martial? And I said, yeah, you're telling me. Like, looking back on it, we should have gone with the court martial. And even then, they've been trying to take away the option. There should never be a command directed investigation when it comes to sexual assault in the military. And this is why. This is a perfect example why. So basically, this guy.
Is that what soured you on the military?
Well, at the time, I would say it didn't really sour me on the military, because I still knew that, I had great leaders. I had effective leaders. I had, are there going to be bad apples in the military? Absolutely. But I didn't have that whole general, like, oh, the Air Force is terrible, right? I was still, I came back and was dealing with that. I was super angry about it, but I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do at this point. I had rotator cuff surgery the next month. I started focusing on that. I was on extended MedCon orders. So my unit, I was living in Denver, Lakewood, and I was being ordered to drive all the way up to Cheyenne, Wyoming, 117 miles away, to do my duty, to work. They were putting me up in a hotel for the week. I had just bought my new house. I literally was never home. I would go up, all my appointments were in Denver. My surgeon was in Denver, physical therapy, all of that, right? And then I would go drive up to Cheyenne and work for the rest of the week, report to my fire chief. And then I'd come back on the weekend. And mind you, I was still going to drill every month on top of that when we had drill. I was never, I was ordered to go to therapy because that was part of my treatment plan for the assault. So I started going to therapy towards the end of, middle to the end of 2017. And the next thing you know, my unit starts, that's when everything started with my unit. It was my unit who did what they did to me. And it was a guard unit, but my guard unit in North Carolina was phenomenal. And the guard unit in Cheyenne, my wing there, took it upon themselves to start demanding. I mean, they literally saw my diagnosis. I had actually been misdiagnosed the first time because I was seeing a civilian therapist, and she diagnosed me with major depressive disorder. And they saw that and they were like, oh, that's an automatic discharge from the Air Force. You're going to be med boarded. And I was like, what? Who are you guys to start a med board? Like, you're not a mental health provider. What the hell's going on? And they literally just started strong arming the entire process. This was coming from the med group that they were saying this to me. And mind you, the girl in charge of this was the exact same thing that I did. She was a 4NO. She just happened to be, higher ranking. And I'm like, you are not qualified to be telling me that you're going to do a med board on me for this. And then that's when the retaliation started. So they started, the wing JAG told my victims assault court, my VA coordinator told her that he was going to come after me for fraud for my shoulder because I had a video on Facebook of me working out. Mind you, again, I'm a personal trainer. I knew what I was doing. I healed. I had full range of motion on my shoulder in 4 months after my surgery, which is unheard of for a full thickness tear. My surgeon was blown away. He was like, I don't know what you've been doing, but that's like, you've cut the time in half. Most people take at least like 8 to 9 months to even get full range of motion in their shoulder after that serious of an injury. I worked really hard. So to have these people start personally attacking me, looking at my Facebook and like, oh, we're going to charge you with fraud because you're over here lifting weights, when I was lifting like a bar with maybe 45 pounds on it. And they were accusing me of fraud because they had no idea what they were talking about. That's when it started. They started attacking me. Next thing you know, they're like, oh, you better turn over your entire mental health record or we're going to give you an admin SEP. They're going to administratively separate me if I did not turn over my entire mental health record. And I was like, no, absolutely not. That's a HIPAA violation. And then, I mean, I got an MFR from the wing threatening to admin SEP me. So I went to ADC. I had my lawyer involved. I had her as well as the Special Victims Council working in conjunction. I started filing a congressional and an IG complaint. That was early 2018. And just fighting, I mean, tooth and nail fighting these people. And it was mind blowing. I mean, I literally had nothing on my record, not even verbal counseling in almost 10 years. And these people were just attacking me from every single direction possible. So I switched to Buckley Air Force Base at the time to, because that was my closest MTF, you know, Buckley's in Aurora. And I started seeing an actual psychiatrist there from active duty mental health because I needed a military doctor to kind of, you know, intervene and be like, hey, this is not okay. Plus she had come from the VA. She was amazing. So I started seeing her and she got involved and even told them, hey, she's fit for duty. I've deemed her fit for duty. Back off. You guys do not get to tell her if she's going to be med boarded. That's my decision. I'm her provider. You are just her med group. You're her wing. You're not seeing her. You're not mental health. And they started questioning my freaking psychiatrist. Her commander had to get involved and call up to my wing and tell him to back off. I mean, it was insane. And before this, these people, I had told them I wasn't doing well when I was still working in Cheyenne and went to them and said, hey, listen, I'm not doing, this is making me more stressed out. Can I please finish my orders at Buckley? I wasn't even trying to leave the wing at the time. I was just trying to finish my active duty orders because Buckley was only 25 miles from my house. And my group commander, who had been my air evac commander, looked me in the face and was like, we do not care about your hardship. This is your wing. This is your unit. This is where you're going to come work. These people straight up told me they did not give a flying crap what happened to me. And I was like, wow, these people don't care about my well-being. They're not backing me up. They're not going to support me. They're not going to look after me. And that was like right before everything kind of started. And so I came off the orders. I told them, nope, I don't want to be on the orders. I'm not going to come up here and work in this environment. It's not healthy. It's toxic. And then that's, you know, fast forward back to like 2010 or 2018 when all that other stuff was going on. And so it just got into this really ugly battle back and forth. These people were attacking me. I filed the IG complaint. The IG complaint got kicked down to the state level and they got involved. They finally deemed that it was a toxic workplace, a toxic environment. And so they coordinated for me to start drilling with the Colorado Guard, with the fire department because of the situation. And they said, okay, as soon as she's released and she's, you know, all her stuff is signed off and the transfer is complete, then you'll go to the Colorado Guard. And until that time, you're going to drill with Colorado and be paid by Wyoming. And you just have to check in with them. So my squadron commander from the 153rd in Cheyenne was like, all right, you've coordinated, you've met the commander with, you know, with the guard unit in Colorado Guard at the Buckley Air Force Base, and we need him to contact us. So mind you, I have a major telling me as a staff sergeant that I need to tell a lieutenant colonel to call him. And I'm like, what? You know? So I show up and my gaining commander knew what was going on. I told him the whole story. So he was aware and he was like, yep, I'll give him a call, whatever. Well, I guess he never called him and they only drilled quarterly. So like October of 2018, next thing you know, I'm getting an email from my fire chief and my squadron commander threatening. They literally gave me a bad RE code, a bad reenlistment code. And they said that they weren't going to let me reenlist. That would have literally prevented me from reenlisting anywhere with any component in any branch. And of course, I flipped out because I was already on my way out the door. My transfer had been signed and approved by the wing commander in Wyoming. A freaking full colonel had signed off on it. And this squadron commander turned around and tried to slap me with this code. So I call my lawyer and she's like, I don't know what the heck they're doing. This is absolutely insane. And she's like, so she's getting involved and she's trying to work it out. And when this happened, the gaining commander in Colorado called up to Wyoming and admitted to my lawyer. He called up there and they badmouthed me to him. So then he tried to back out of the transfer. And my lawyer was like, you can't back out of a transfer. What? And so it just turned into a complete circus. And I was like, these people are so
total clusterfuck. Excuse me.
Oh, completely. And you know what? It was my SVC, who was my special victims counsel, because he wasn't even in, the area. He was like in Ohio at the time. He was the one who was assigned to me from the minute my assault happened. And he was like, they are looking for any reason to get rid of you. They are on a mission. And because you stood up for yourself, these people are all about the power trip. They're all about, it's corrupt, it's toxic. And I said, oh yeah, absolutely. So, and they were so pissed off that I stood up to these high ranking senior enlisted, senior NCOs and officers. It was like, how dare you question our authority? How dare you stand up to us? How dare you do this? And I'm like, I have done nothing wrong. Nothing. I don't deserve this. They turned around on this battery code and said I was a piece of shit firefighter. They said I was a shitty NCO. Horrible stuff about my character. They said I was emotionally unstable. They violated HIPAA by talking about my case within the wing to people that were never allowed to hear my private information about my assault.
So did you finally get out on your own accord?
Not really, no. So basically, it came right down to the end that I filed the appeal to get rid of the bad RE code, and the wing commander denied it. He backed up the squadron commander, who was his subordinate. So this guy went against his own commander, his own boss, and filed this RE code, and the wing commander still supported him and said, nope, we're gonna give you the bad RE code. You're not gonna be able to re-enlist. Your contract's ending. So I turned around and called the Adjutant General of Wyoming, General Luke Reiner at the time. He was a 3-star general, Army dude, crazy, like hardcore infantryman, like seen all kinds of stuff, right? Like doesn't take anybody's shit. I called up to his office because that was like my Hail Mary pass. I'm like, I'm not going out like this. Called up to the office. I said, I need to have a meeting with General Reiner. And his secretary was like, he's not available until December. And I'm like, well, my contract ends November 27th. I really need to see this man. And I told her the whole story and she was like, oh my gosh. And she said, well, I can't do anything. So I didn't think anything of it. They forced me to come up to Cheyenne November 16th so that I could sign my paperwork and out process. And I show up and that morning I called a civilian attorney by the name of Greg Rinke, and I was given his information. He's a private attorney. He used to be JAG in the Army or Air Force. I can't remember what branch, but now he's a civilian attorney. And he actually has gone up against the NGB, and his name is very well known. So he files lawsuits against the National Guard Bureau, and they are terrified of him. He's an extremely successful lawyer. And so I called this guy, told him my story, and he talked to my area defense counsel right in front of me. And she admitted that she had just taken over as the JAG, and she was my ADC. And I'm like, what? You can't be an area defense counsel and the JAG for the same wing. Like, it was totally biased. She wasn't representing me. It was a conflict of interest. And it just shows you how deep the corruption went in that wing. And he even sat there and asked her, okay, what's Sergeant Trapp's, what's her, what's on her record? And she was like, nothing. And he was like, nothing? There's nothing on her record. And she was like, no. And he goes, okay, so, it was like silence. Again, crickets. Like, you're gonna prosecute the staff sergeant who's got literally nothing on her background. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. So last minute, we get a call, and I guess her boss, who took over the JAG working for General Reiner, had called down to the wing when I was there that day. And I didn't know, because I didn't tell any of them that I had even called General Reiner's office. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I get called into the wing commander's office the last minute. And they call me in there, and I thought I was getting more paperwork by the way this gentleman talked to me. Mind you, my wing commander, he knows the whole story. He knows about my assault. He knows all of it. And he's like, well, this was a hard decision to make. And, there's reasons that there's sometimes you just have to go along with what's right for the mission and not for yourself. And I'm like, what? And so what I know happened is General Reiner probably called him, chewed his ass out, and made him reverse my RE code, because the next thing I know, they're accepting my appeal and I'm signing paperwork. And he's treating me, berating me like I did something horrid, like I'm a terrible person. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I'm signing it, and he's like, do you have any questions? And I'm like, yes, sir, I do. I like to say, I don't even know how it got to this point. Like, none of this should have even happened. My lawyer, again, the woman who just found out she's also the JAG as well as the ADC, cuts me off and says, oh, thank you, sir, for your time. And thank you. And I'm like, wow. And so we go back to her office, and she does the same thing. She's like, I don't know how you managed to do this. You must just have a ray of sunshine following you around. I mean, treating me like I was some piece of shit. And then from that deployment, I had an Air Force Achievement Medal for the work I did while I was going through that assault. That's how insane all the stuff was that happened to me. These people were treating me like I was the worst freaking airman, NCO, and firefighter on the planet of the United States or the world,
So
in
now,
that matter.
now you get out, and now what is your mission now?
They refused to sign my PHA, and that's what happened. I didn't have a PHA, and I got out, and they wouldn't take me back in because I was 60% rated for disability. So it was like they did it on purpose. They knew what would happen, and I wouldn't be able to come back in and serve. So I was devastated. And it was hard. You know, I unraveled kind of after that. I got into a really dark place early 2019. So like 3 months after. And I was in denial about it, to be honest, because I was like, well, I'm not actively planning my suicide, but I didn't want to live anymore. I would wake up every single day and just wished I was dead. And luckily, because I had already started Deadlift Diva, my fitness business, and I had a lot of networking and entrepreneur friends in the, online realm, I had a really good friend who had been in Colorado for NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. Thinking like, Tony Robbins and that kind of stuff, very powerful mindset, personal growth and development. And she reached out to me and she was like, Meghann, you need to take this class. You need to meet with Scott. And I'm like, I was super skeptical because I was like, dude, I'm so messed up that there's nothing that's going to ever fix me. And so I thought, okay, I'll go meet with him. So I went up to Boulder and met with Scott. His name's Scott Jackson. He's amazing. He runs the NLP courses. He actually teaches NLP coach practitioner courses. And I met with him and told him all about my story. And he was like, I know I can help you. I know I can change your life. And so I said, okay, what do I have to lose? And it was huge. I mean, it was like, almost $7,000 for that course. But I was like, I had just won some money from a settlement from a car accident. And I'm like, what do I have to lose? This is an investment in me. And I am on that edge of, I was super close to taking my life, and I knew that I had to do something. So May was the course that I took from him. It was my NLP practitioner course that included hypnotherapy. So getting certified in all those things, hypnosis, coaching, and all of that entails with NLP coach. And I am telling you that this course completely changed my life through hypnotherapy, timeline therapy, and hypnosis. I went in and was able to release all the 5 major negative emotions. So anger, hurt, sadness, fear, guilt. I used timeline therapy to clear up all of the trauma from my past, to clear up all the emotional triggers and significant events that had happened to me in my life. I was a completely different person after that. And within 6 months, I co-authored my book called She Did It for female entrepreneurs and shared my story. I then spoke last March at Fort Sam Houston I spoke to the Army South Command, and I shared my story for the first time publicly about my assault, and became very passionate about changing sexual assault within the military and changing, how we handle mental health, suicide awareness, all those things that veterans and military members face, and everyone in general, of course, but specifically veterans, because it's a huge, for me, I'm very passionate about it, because my career was destroyed over it. And it was hard to let go of that, but I know that had to happen for me to get to where I'm at now. I could have never become the person I am right now if I had not lost that much and gone through and put myself in such a painful, dark place to find, that joy and that passion in life again, and to be able to inspire other people to heal and to change and to grow and to be the best version of themselves that they can be.
So if somebody is struggling right now, because I always ask this question at the end of our interviews. If I ask somebody to do something in 7 days, they're pretty much never going to get to it because of our busy life. But
Right.
but if I ask somebody to do something in the next 24 hours, they're more likely to take that step. So
Absolutely.
what can a female or even a male? Because now it's men and female
Yeah.
coming out with MST and different trauma. What can they do in the next 24 hours to start to get help, or where can they go to get help?
There are so many, I know a lot of people say that, right? And you hear it all the time, like, oh, please reach out, the National Suicidal Line. And yes, those absolutely are wonderful resources. But I think that a lot of people, and especially being an assault survivor, you really do feel like no one understands you. No one understands where you're coming from, right? They don't understand what you've been through, the pain you've suffered. And it's humiliating. You feel like, especially for me, it's like how you failed, right? So the biggest thing that you can do is for me, my advice would be reach out to somebody that that you trust. Anyone, whether it's a friend, if you're on Facebook, that's a really good place to look because there are so many support groups now. There are so many different groups, even just for people to, veterans groups that I belong to that are you can literally just go in there and just vent your stuff. You can say things like, I feel like I'm going to take my life. And there are every single time I've seen things like that posted, a plethora of veterans and military members just immediately respond like, hey, I'm here for you. Here's my phone number. Reach out to me. And I mean, I offer people the same stuff all the time. I'm like, I don't care who you are. I've actually had a lot of males more than women. I mean, I have had a lot of women reach out to me and ask me stuff, but I've actually gotten a big response from men too, from male survivors and from male veterans because they see the stuff that I post. And I tell people all the time, please reach out to me. I don't care who you are. I will sit on the phone, whether it's through Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, actually on the phone. I mean, because we need those people. And it's, I think especially that bond that we have as veterans and military members, they understand that they can come to us and that it's a place where they're not going to be judged. And it's because we've been through that same stuff that they've been through. And, it's kind of harder sometimes when you reach out to a civilian, like, how's this person going to understand they've never served?
So now, how does somebody find you? How can they find your book? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my Facebook page, my personal page is just Meghann Trapp. It's Meghann Trapp, Trapp. I've also got my coaching business, which is Meghann Trapp Coaching, and all my stuff is linked. I mean, I have everything listed on Facebook. I've got both of my Instagram profiles attached to that. I've got my Snapchat, of course, Messenger, my Facebook profile, both for Deadlift Diva and Meghann Trapp Coaching. I've got my website, which is Meghann Trapp, MeghannTrappCoaching.com. My emails are listed on both pages. My book as well, I have the links on there for the book. But yeah, I absolutely love to hear from people. I love to connect with people, and I'm there when I say it. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that do say the same thing too, and they do mean it. I mean, I truly will make that time to talk to somebody, especially if they are ever feeling that they are, that's it. Like they can't go on. They don't know who to talk to. Maybe they have friends and family they've talked to before, but they're not, because it is hard. I went through the same thing. I felt very isolated. I felt that how would my friends and family ever understand what I'm going through?
Now,
So please,
I
oh,
also
sorry.
friend Annette Wittenberger and Tammy Moses that they have to have you on their show. So check them out. Annette Wittenberg, her podcast is called "The Truths We Hide Behind," and I think you would be the perfect guest for her show. And
Awesome. Yeah.
and also Tammy Moses, she deals with hoarding solution, but she also deals with people that have struggled with mental health issues or whatever, and also came out the other side. And her podcast is called The Hoarding Solution. And I told them both about you. I want want them to be able to sit and talk to you just like you talk with me today and get your story out there.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm honored, thankful for that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so appreciative.
Yeah.
And this will go out probably in a week or two. It goes out on all my platforms. I got like 10 different platforms, so it'll go everywhere. And then I'll tag you in it just so you can, if you want to do any special offers to the people that are listening, whatever you want to do, I'll
Yes.
tag you on everything.
Yes, absolutely. I love, giving out, especially like I said, helping other people and doing, I do free strategy sessions and doing like, a strategy session of going over like what they need help with or what they want to change or looking into, hypnosis sessions and stuff like that too. So
And if
absolutely.
I know anybody that's looking for real estate in your area, I'll send
Yes,
it to you
that would be my next move.
because you're going to crush it.
Thank you.
All right. Well,
I'm so honored and blessed that you invited me. Thank you so much for having me.
well, God bless you and thank you for everything you're doing for the people. It's definitely needed. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a blessed weekend.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.